The blade, freshly sharpened, catches the pale morning light. A cold October mist clings to the cobblestones of the Revolution Square. The air is thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth, cold metal, and the palpable breath of 1,000 spectators. They have come in the pre-dawn gloom, a sea of hungry eyes and grim faces, to witness an ending. A cart rattles over the stones. The sound is jarring, a death knell in the stillness. In the back, a woman is seated. Her hands are bound behind her. She wears a simple white chemise, a stark contrast to the opulence once associated with her name. Her hair, once powdered and towering, is now crudely shorn, the nape of her neck exposed and vulnerable. The chill must be biting, but she shows no shiver. Her back is straight. Her eyes, a faded blue, scan the faces in the crowd. They do not see pity. They see only a raw, unforgiving hatred. This is Marie Antoinette, Archduchess of Austria, Queen of France. And this is her final journey. The cart comes to a halt before the platform. The wooden steps are steep. She stumbles, just for a moment. A gendarme reaches out to steady her. She does not thank him. Her gaze is fixed ahead, on the instrument of her death. The massive, angular frame of the guillotine stands silhouetted against the grey sky. It is a stark, brutal piece of machinery. Efficient, democratic. It does not care for royalty. She climbs the steps. Her legs feel weak, the strength sapped from a long night of interrogation and a final, heartbreaking letter to her sister that will never be sent. The executioner, Henri Sanson, moves to bind her feet. She allows it. There is no struggle. The only sound is the coarse rasp of the rope and the low, eager murmur of the crowd, a beast waiting to be fed. This is not just an execution. It is a ritual killing. The death of a queen to bury a monarchy. The death of a woman to birth a republic. To understand the woman in the cart, we must travel back. To a world of gilded mirrors and whispered secrets. To the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, 1770. A 14-year-old girl, with ash-blonde hair and a porcelain complexion, is led through a glittering throng. She is Maria Antonia Josepha Joanna, the youngest daughter of the powerful Empress Maria Theresa of Austria. Today, she is to marry the French Dauphin, the future King Louis XVI. The air is perfumed with orange blossom and jasmine. The rustle of silk gowns is a constant, whispering tide. Candlelight reflects infinitely in the mirrored walls, creating an illusion of 1,000 princesses, 1,000 futures. She is a pawn in a great political game, a living treaty to seal the alliance between two ancient rivals, France and Austria. From this moment, she is Marie Antoinette, Dauphine of France. But the gilded cage has its bars. The French court is a snake pit of etiquette and intrigue. Every gesture is watched, every misstep noted. She is disliked from the start. L'autre Quienne, the Austrian woman, a foreigner in a hostile land. Her new husband is shy, awkward, and distant. For 7 long years, the marriage remains unconsummated. The pressure to produce an heir is immense, a constant, silent weight on her young shoulders. The whispers begin. They call her frivolous. They call her cold. They question her loyalty. When Louis XVI ascends the throne, the cage becomes grander, but the bars grow stronger. Seeking escape from the stifling formality of court, she creates her own world. The Petit Trianon, a small shadow on the grounds of Versailles, becomes a sanctuary. Here, the strict rules of court are banished. She surrounds herself with a chosen few, an inner circle that sparks jealousy and suspicion among the excluded nobility. She builds a rustic hamlet, the Hameau de la Reine, where she and her friends can play at being shepherdesses, wearing simple muslin dresses, a far cry from the structured silks of court. The rumors, once whispers, now take flight like dark birds. In the pamphlets and libelles that flood the streets of Paris, she is no longer just frivolous. She is a monster. They call her Madame Deficit, blaming the nation's empty coffers on her extravagant spending. They paint her as a nymphomaniac, a lesbian, a woman of insatiable and deviant appetites. The most vicious lie of all, the diamond necklace affair of 1785, forever stains her reputation. Though completely innocent, she is publicly tried in the court of opinion and found guilty of greed, deceit, and moral corruption. Meanwhile, beyond the palace gates, a storm is brewing. The air in Paris smells different, not of perfume, but of bread. The desperate, yeasty smell of a populace on the brink. A bad harvest. Rising taxes. The gnawing hunger in the bellies of the common people. While the Queen plays at a farm, real peasants are starving. The contrast is fatal. She becomes the perfect symbol of everything wrong with the old regime. Decadent, out of touch, unfeeling. The phrase "let them eat cake" is attributed to her, a lie so perfect it sticks, encapsulating the perceived cruelty of the aristocracy. The storm breaks on July 14, 1789. The Bastille falls. The sound is not of falling stones, but of a world cracking apart. The scent of revolution is gunpowder and smoke. At Versailles, the Queen hears the distant thunder. The gilded cage is shaking. In October, a mob of thousands, mostly women, marches from Paris to Versailles. They are armed with pikes, scythes, and a burning rage. They breach the palace gates. The smell of the mob, sweat, mud, and fury invades the marble court. They want bread, and they want the Queen's head. They storm her private apartments. She barely escapes with her life, fleeing through a secret passage to the king's rooms, the sound of the mob's fury echoing at her heels. The next day, the royal family is forced to leave Versailles forever. As their carriage rolls away from the only home she has known for 19 years, Marie Antoinette looks back. She does not see the glorious palace. She sees a tomb. She is now a prisoner of her own people, heading for the Tuileries Palace in Paris, a gilded prisoner in the heart of the Revolution. The carriage ride to Paris is a descent into a new reality. The air is no longer clean. It is thick with the acrid smoke of bonfires and the roar of the crowd. Faces, contorted with hatred, press against the glass. Fists shake. Curses fly. There she is, the Austrian she-wolf. The words are not just heard, they are felt, a physical assault. Inside, Marie Antoinette sits perfectly still, her face a mask of pale composure. But her hands, hidden in the folds of her dress, are clenched so tightly her nails leave half-moon indentations in her palms. She is entering the belly of the beast. For 2 years, the Tuileries Palace becomes a gilded prison. The walls are the same, but the world outside has inverted. Every window looks out onto a sea of suspicion. The royal family lives under constant watch, their every move reported, their every whisper suspected. The scent of the palace changes. The old smells of beeswax and perfume are slowly overpowered by the smell of fear, a metallic tang that hangs in the air. The king is indecisive, a man trapped by his own inability to comprehend the tidal wave that has engulfed him. The queen, however, understands the danger. She becomes the strategist, the plotter. In the dead of night, by the light of a single candle, she writes secret letters. The ink is expensive, the paper fine, but the words are desperate. She pleads with her brother, the Emperor of Austria, and with other European monarchs. She begs for intervention, for an army to march on Paris and crush this rebellion. She knows it is a monstrous gamble. If discovered, it is treason. But to her, it is not treason against France. It is a fight for survival, for the very principle of monarchy. The gamble leads to the flight to Varennes in June 1791. Disguised as servants in a heavy, lumbering berlin, the royal family attempts to escape. The night is thick with tension. Every creak of the carriage, every shout from the road, sends a jolt of terror through them. For a few, fleeting hours, freedom seems possible. They can almost taste the air beyond the border, the safety of royalist troops. But they are recognized. A postmaster, his eyes sharp in the gloom, holds a silver ECU up to a portrait of the king. The faces match. The dream shatters. The return to Paris is a funeral procession. The crowds are silent now, a silence more terrifying than their rage. They are met not with shouts, but with a forest of turned backs and crossed arms. The message is clear. You are no longer our rulers. You are our prisoners. The fragile pretense is over. The lock on the gilded cage has been bolted shut. Then, in April 1792, the war begins. France declares war on Austria. For Marie Antoinette, this is the final, devastating blow. She is now, officially, the enemy within. The propaganda sharpens its knives. She is the Austrian tigress, a spy in their midst, secretly signaling to the enemy, praying for the death of French soldiers. The pressure becomes unbearable. On August 10, 1792, a massive mob, organized by the radical Jacobins, storms the Tuileries. The sound is not of a crowd, but of an avalanche, breaking glass, splintering wood, and the primal scream of revolution. The Swiss guards, loyal to the end, are massacred at their posts. The royal family flees, taking refuge in the nearby Manège, the meeting hall of the National Assembly. They listen, huddled together, as the sounds of the slaughter echo through the streets. The smell of gunpowder and blood drifts in through the windows. That night, they are transferred to the temple fortress. This is no palace. It is a cold, dark, medieval keep. The stone walls weep with dampness. The air is stale and frigid. The door to their apartment clangs shut with a finality that echoes in their souls. The monarchy is dead. The prisoners remain. Here, in the grim solitude of the temple, the slow erosion begins. First, the king is taken from them. He is led away to stand trial for treason. The sound of his footsteps fading down the stone corridor is a sound his wife and children will never forget. In January 1793, Louis XVI is executed. When the news reaches the temple, Marie Antoinette does not scream. She does not cry. She turns to the wall, her body rigid. She becomes a ghost in her own life, a figure of pure, silent grief. She is now the widow Capet, stripped of even her name. But her captors are not finished. In the heat of that summer, she is separated from her son. The 8-year-old boy, the Dauphin, is taken to be re-educated by a cobbler, to be taught to curse the memory of his own mother. The scene is one of utter brutality. The child clings to her, screaming. The guards pry him from her arms. Her composure, held for so long, finally shatters. She falls to her knees, her cries echoing in the stone room. It is a sound of pure, animal despair. From this moment, a part of her dies. The woman who remains is a hollowed-out shell, waiting for the end. The end comes on the night of August 1st, 1793. The heavy lock on her door turns. Men with hard faces and the tricolour sash of the Republic enter her cell. The air smells of their cheap wine and unwashed bodies. They read a decree. She is to be transferred to the conciergerie, the antechamber of death. As she is led down the damp, narrow corridors of the temple for the last time, she stumbles, her hand brushing against the cold, slimy stone of the wall. It is the last physical memory of her long imprisonment. The heavy outer door groans open, revealing a waiting cart. The night air is cool. She does not look back. The conciergerie is not a prison. It is a tomb. The air is a cold, wet shroud, heavy with the smell of mildew, human waste, and despair. It sits on the Isle de la Cite, a stone's throw from the Revolutionary Tribunal, a brutal efficiency in its location. This is the last stop before the guillotine. They call it the waiting room for death. Marie Antoinette is placed in a small, damp cell. A single, barred window high on the wall allows a sliver of grey light to pierce the gloom. The furnishings are a crude cot with a thin, straw-filled mattress and a small table. The stone floor is always cold, the moisture seeping up through the thin soles of her shoes. The sounds of this place are a constant torture. The tramp of guards' boots in the corridor, the clang of iron doors, the muffled sobs of other prisoners, and the chilling roll of the tumbrils carting the condemned away each morning. Here, she is known only as Prisoner 280. The stripping of her identity is nearly complete. Her few remaining possessions are inventoried with cold bureaucracy. She is watched day and night by 2 gendarmes who sit in her cell, their eyes never leaving her. There is no privacy, not even for her most basic bodily functions. The humiliation is a deliberate tactic, a way to break the spirit of the monarch they so despise. For 76 days, this is her existence. A life measured not in sunrises and sunsets, but in the daily list of the condemned. The toilet of the condemned, they call it, the ritual shaving of the neck to prepare for the blade. She can hear the names being called out each day, a roll call for the grave. The suspense is not in if she will be called, but when. The waiting is a slow, psychological execution. Her health begins to fail. The damp cold settles in her bones. She suffers from persistent bleeding, likely a uterine cancer that had been plaguing her for years. The poor food and constant fear worsen her condition. She is pale, gaunt, a ghost of the vibrant queen she once was. Yet, in this grim abyss, a strange kind of legend begins to form. The guards, hardened men of the Revolution, report on her demeanor. She is always composed. She does not beg. She does not weep. She spends her days reading, or simply sitting, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze turned inward. This unbroken spirit unnerves her captors. It does not fit their narrative of a decadent, weak-willed monster. Then, on the night of October 14th, 1793, the bolt on her cell door slides back with a sound like a pistol shot. It is not the morning call for the tumbril. It is the president of the Revolutionary Tribunal, Herman, and the public prosecutor, Fouquier Tinville. The trial begins now. In the dead of night, she is led through the labyrinthine corridors of the conciergerie, up into the vast, cavernous hall of the Revolutionary Tribunal. The room is a study in stark, terrifying power. Torches flicker, casting long, dancing shadows on the stone walls. The air is thick with the smell of smoke and the sweat of the packed spectators who have gathered, despite the hour, for the main event. They are not here for justice. They are here for a spectacle. She is made to stand in a wooden dock, exposed on all sides to the hostile gaze of the jury and the crowd. The charges are read. They are a sweeping, hysterical catalogue of invented crimes, conspiring with foreign powers, squandering the national treasury, orgying at Versailles. The diamond necklace affair is dredged up once more. But the most shocking, the most vile accusation is saved for last: incest. The prosecutor, Fouquier Tinville, a man with a face as cold and sharp as the guillotine's blade, produces a son, the 8-year-old Louis Charles. The boy, broken by months of abuse and coached by his jailer, stands before the court. He is asked to confirm that his mother and his aunt had engaged in immoral acts with him. The crowd holds its breath. This is the moment designed to utterly destroy her, to strip her of the last vestige of her humanity, her role as a mother. Marie Antoinette's composure finally cracks. For the first time, her mask of icy calm slips. She turns to the spectators, her voice rising above the murmur of the crowd, not in a shriek, but in a powerful, maternal cry that echoes through the hall. I appeal to all the mothers here. The silence that follows is absolute, stunned. The accusation is so monstrous, so contrary to every known fact of her devotion to her children, that it momentarily shames the proceedings. Even some in the hostile crowd shift uncomfortably. It is a fleeting victory, but a profound one. She has, for a moment, reclaimed her dignity from the jaws of their hatred. The trial is a foregone conclusion. There are no witnesses for the defense. The evidence is pamphlets and rumors. The jury is composed of hardened revolutionaries who have already decided her fate. After 36 grueling hours of interrogation and character assassination, with no sleep and little food, the verdict is delivered. Unanimous. Guilty. The sentence is death. The words hang in the air, then are swallowed by the roaring approval of the crowd. She is led back to her cell in the conciergerie to await the dawn. There, she is given a pen and paper. She writes a final, heartbreaking letter to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth. It is a letter of love for her children, of forgiveness for her enemies, of faith in God. It is a queen's last testament. But the letter is never sent. Fouquier Tinville intercepts it and destroys it. He will allow her no final word. Her voice must die with her. As the first light of October 16th stains the sky, the executioner, Sanson, enters. He cuts her hair. He binds her hands behind her back. The coarse rope chafes her wrists. She is helped into the simple white chemise of the condemned. She is led out into the cold courtyard where the wooden cart waits. The morning mist is still thick. The smell of the city, damp stone, the river, and the eager, waiting crowd fills her lungs one last time. The cart jolts forward. Each turn of the wooden wheels over the cobblestones is a hammer blow, a brutal countdown. She sways with emotion, her bound hands making it hard to balance. The white chemise is thin, and the autumn chill seeps deep into her bones, but she feels a strange, detached numbness. The world has narrowed to this. The feel of the rough wood beneath her, the sound of the horses' hooves, and the sea of faces that line the route. They do not cheer. The sound that follows her is a low, guttural roar, a cacophony of insults, songs, and the chilling, rhythmic chant of the CAIRA, the anthem of the Revolution. The smell is overwhelming: unwashed bodies, cheap wine, the metallic tang of the nearby river. Hands point. Fists are shaken. Hateless eyes, thousands of them, track her progress. She keeps her gaze fixed on a point somewhere in the distance, her profile pale and stark against the grim backdrop of the city. She is performing the last and most difficult role of her life, the role of a queen dying with dignity. The journey is interminable, a slow parade through her own damnation. They pass through streets she once knew as a Dauphine, now transformed into a theatre of her execution. She sees a painter, high on a ladder, frantically trying to capture her final moments. She notices a woman, her face hard and lined, who spits in the direction of the cart. The gesture is full of a venom that speaks of years of hunger, of resentment, of a life of hardship blamed squarely on her. In that moment, she is not just a woman. She is the symbol of 1,000 injustices, real and imagined. The cart turns a final corner, and the square opens up before her. The Place de la Révolution. It is a vast, open space, but today it feels claustrophobically crowded, a heaving mass of humanity gathered around a single, stark point: the guillotine. It stands taller than she imagined. The two upright beams, painted a dull blood red, reach towards the grey sky. The lunette, the circular opening where the neck is placed, is a dark, waiting eye. The blade, held aloft by a simple mechanism, is a sliver of polished steel, cold and impersonal. The scent of fresh sawdust mixes with a coppery, foul odor she cannot place, the accumulated smell of death from the thousands who have gone before her. The platform is stained dark, a deep, ugly brown that water cannot wash away. The cart halts. The silence that falls is sudden and more terrifying than the noise. All eyes are on her. She climbs down, her legs trembling with a weakness she despises. The steps to the scaffold are steep. She stumbles, her foot slipping on the damp wood. The executioner's assistant, a brutish man, grabs her arm roughly to steady her. She flinches, pulling her arm away as if burned. It is her last act of royal defiance. She walks the final few paces alone. Her eyes are downcast, avoiding the terrible machine, until she is standing directly before it. Then she looks up. She takes in the blade, the basket, the waiting priest who mumbles a hurried, revolutionary prayer. There is no fear in her eyes now, only a profound, bottomless weariness. Henri Sanson moves to bind her ankles. She allows it. He helps her to lie forward on the bascule, the tilting plank. The wood is cold against her cheek. The world tilts. Her vision is filled with the basket below, already holding the heads of those executed before her. The smell of blood is here, thick and metallic, clogging her nostrils. The lunette comes down, the half moon of wood closing over her neck, holding her fast. She is trapped. The world is reduced to the grain of the wood in front of her eyes, the weight on her neck, the sound of her own heart hammering in her ears. A sudden, sharp crack. The mechanism releases. The blade, a 40-pound weight of angled steel, falls. It does not whistle. It hisses. A sound of pure, efficient force, cutting through the air for less than a second. Then, a wet, chopping thud. A sound that is horribly, sickeningly final. The crowd, which had been holding its breath, erupts. The roar is deafening, primal. It is a sound of triumph, of release, of a collective fury finally sated. Sanson's assistant reaches into the basket. He does not lift the head by the hair. It is too short. He grabs it by the ends, his fingers digging into the pale skin of the cheeks. He holds it aloft, turning it to show all four sides of the square. The face is pale, the eyes closed. A trickle of blood runs from the corner of the parted lips. The crowd screams its approval. Vive la République! The chant is taken up, a thunderous wave that rolls out from the square, through the streets of Paris, and into the pages of history. The body is quickly stripped, its belongings tossed into a cart, the remains dumped into a waiting wicker coffin. The blood is washed from the platform with buckets of water. The sawdust is replaced. The machine is ready for the next customer. The efficiency is breathtaking. In the Tuileries, her young son, the lost Dauphin, does not know. He is being taught to sing a revolutionary song. In the temple, her daughter, Marie Antoinette, hears the distant roar from the square and feels a cold dread she cannot explain. Across Europe, in the glittering courts of kings and emperors, the news is met with a stunned, horrified silence. The unthinkable has happened. A queen has been killed like a common criminal. The rules of the world have been shattered. The fallout is immediate and profound. For the revolutionaries, the execution is the ultimate act of purification. They have killed the past. They have proven that no one, not even a queen, is above the will of the people. The reign of terror intensifies, the guillotine's blade falling faster and more hungrily. The death of Marie Antoinette becomes a license to kill anyone deemed an enemy of the state. The river of blood she was the most famous drop of is now a flood. For the royalists and the monarchies of Europe, she is instantly transformed. No longer the frivolous Madame Deficit, she becomes a martyr, a saint, the image of the humiliated queen, the grieving widow, the stoic victim, is polished and propagated. Her final letter, though destroyed, is recreated from memory and circulated, a powerful piece of propaganda that paints her as a figure of piety and forgiveness. And in the quiet of the Madeleine Cemetery, her body is thrown into a deep, common grave, covered in quicklime to speed its decomposition. She is laid to rest beside the body of her husband, the king, and thousands of others. There is no marker, no ceremony. The earth is stamped down, and the site is forgotten. The ultimate humiliation is this anonymous end, a final, brutal confirmation that in the new republic, a queen is no one at all. The roar of the crowd did not fade with the falling of the blade. It seeped into the stones of Paris, a fever that would not break. The execution of the queen was not an end, but a catalyst. The revolution, having tasted regal blood, developed an insatiable thirst. The reign of terror, once a storm, became a climate. In the weeks and months that followed, the guillotine worked with industrial efficiency. The sound of the tumbrils became as common as the ringing of church bells used to be. The air in the Place de la Révolution was permanently tainted, a metallic mist that clung to clothes and lingered in the back of the throat. They called the guillotine the national razor, and it shaved France clean of its old aristocracy, its perceived enemies, and eventually, its own architects. The very revolutionaries who had prosecuted Marie Antoinette, Hebert, Danton, Robespierre, would all, in their turn, feel the cold kiss of the blade they had so fervently embraced. The monster they created had turned on its masters. But what of the others in her story? The figures who shared her gilded cage and then her grim fate? Her daughter, Marie Therese, remained a prisoner in the temple for another year, the last relic of a fallen dynasty. She was eventually exchanged for French prisoners of war, a peace in a cold political transaction. She emerged into the light of Austria, a haunted, withdrawn woman who would spend the rest of her life shrouded in black, a living monument to the family she lost. She never spoke of those years. The trauma was a lock on her tongue. The most tragic figure was her son, Louis Charles. Designated as Louis XVII by royalists in exile, the boy was never freed. Kept in a dark, filthy room in the temple, systematically abused and neglected by his jailer, the cobbler Antoine Simon, he withered away. The lively Dauphin was reduced to a feral, sickly child. He died in June 1795, at the age of 10, his body ravaged by scrofula and neglect. The cause of death was listed as lymphatic tuberculosis, but the true cause was despair. His heart was removed by the physician who performed the autopsy, a macabre relic that would journey through the centuries, a silent witness to a particularly cruel injustice. And what of the Queen's body? The quicklime did its work in the common pit at the Madeleine Cemetery, hastening the return to dust. The site was paved over, forgotten, a secret buried beneath the growing city. It would not be exhumed until 1815, after the monarchy was restored. By then, only fragments of bones and a few scraps of fabric remained. There was no certainty, only a grim assumption. The king and queen's supposed remains were transferred to the royal crypt at the Basilica of Saint Denis, a final, solemn resting place built on a foundation of doubt. This leads us to the great, unsettling debates that have swirled around Marie Antoinette's story for over 2 centuries. History has never been able to agree on who she truly was. Was she the Austrian tigress of revolutionary propaganda? The heartless spendthrift who crippled a nation with her extravagance? The secret traitor who plotted with foreign powers to drown the revolution in blood? The evidence for these claims is flimsy, built on forged documents like the infamous diamond necklace evidence and the coerced testaments of her broken son. Or was she the martyred saint of the royalist narrative? The pious mother, the devoted wife, the innocent victim of a bloodthirsty mob? This image, carefully constructed from her dignified conduct at her trial and execution, ignores her very real political meddling, her secret correspondence with the enemy, and her profound, often arrogant, disconnect from the suffering of her people. The truth, as always, lies in the murky space between the monster and the martyr. She was a woman of her time and her station. She was born into absolute power and could not comprehend a world without it. She was politically naive, emotionally isolated, and tragically out of step with the seismic shifts happening in her adopted country. She was not evil, but she was, undeniably, a symbol of a system that was. Modern historians have peeled back the layers of propaganda. The phrase "let them eat cake" was attributed to her decades before the revolution. It was a tale told about many out-of-touch aristocrats. Her spending, while considerable, was a fraction of the crown's overall debt, a problem caused far more by the king's support of the American Revolution and a corrupt, antiquated tax system. She was a convenient scapegoat, a foreign-born woman upon whom a nation's frustrations could be pinned. Yet, one mystery has proven particularly resilient, a ghost in the historical machine. The affair of the Carnation. During her imprisonment in the conciergerie, a royalist sympathizer named Alexandre de Rougeville managed to sneak into her cell. He dropped a single carnation at her feet. Wrapped within its petals was a tiny note, outlining a plan for her escape. The Queen, in a moment of either panic or failing hope, misplaced the note. It was found by her guards. The plot was foiled. The incident sealed her fate, proving to the tribunal that she was still a focal point for counter-revolution. But why did she not clutch at this straw? Was she simply too broken, too resigned to death? Or was there another, more chilling reason? Some speculate that the plot was a provocation from the start, engineered by Fouquier Tinville himself to provide the final, damning evidence he needed to send her to the guillotine. It is a theory that fits the paranoia of the time, a world where nothing was as it seemed, and hope itself could be a weapon wielded by your executioner. The blade fell, the crowd cheered, and the body was cast into a pit. But the story of Marie Antoinette refused to die. It became a cautionary tale about the power of image, the danger of disconnect, and the violent fury that can be unleashed when a people feel their rulers no longer see them as human. She remains a figure of intense fascination, not because she was a great queen, but because her life and death hold up a dark mirror to the complexities of power, prejudice, and justice. She was a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a queen. But in the end, She was simply prisoner 280, kneeling in the damp sawdust, waiting for the hiss of steel. And in the quiet of certain archives, pressed between the pages of a book, a single, dried carnation still exists, its secret forever kept.